Hello and welcome to Franklin Covey's On Leadership series. My name is Scott Miller and I'm privileged to serve as your weekly host. Today joining us live in the studio is the renowned best-selling author and really leadership visionary Sean Covey. Sean, welcome to On Leadership.
Scott?
Glad to have you here.
It's good to be here.
My sense is you've probably read most of these, if not more than this in your journey.
I've probably skimmed a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a few yours up here as well. I've told you many times, you have been the author, a prolific author of many books. Mm-hmm. In fact, you are the author or co-author of books that have sold over 10 million copies. Oh. I mean, that is phenomenal. In fact, most of them you've authored yourself, but what is it like to be sitting at the end of this journey where you literally started writing every day at 5 in the morning and wrote till you had to go to work, and now to see the impact it's had, it has to be validating.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting and cool, and I never would have guessed, right, when I started writing these books.
Yeah.
I remember when I started writing The 7 Habits for Teens, I decided to write it, and I got up every morning about 5 a.m., wrote for 2 hours for like 3 years, thinking I might sell a few copies, and it's actually done pretty well. So
it's paid off, and it's influence.
Yeah,
right?
It has.
How many, and don't be humble, how many copies has The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens sold?
Yeah, it sold about 8 million copies around the world.
That's insane.
In about 25 different languages.
Right.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the most influential books ever written in the space for teen leadership, right?
Yeah, I wish I could get my teens to read it.
Yeah. In fact, I think there are probably more adults have read it, because I hear so many times people will say, I had a little difficulty with his dad's book, The 7 Habits, but the principles were so easy to understand in your version. In many ways, it's a great read for adults.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's an easy read because it's got lots of stories, and it's got cartoons, and it's simple. Right. It's written for teenagers, but
or adults like me.
Or immature adults.
Immature adults. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So, Sean, you've written some great books. I mean, you've authored 7 Habits for Teens, 7 Habits of Happy Kids, the 7 Habits Kids series. Yeah. You've authored 6 Most Important Decisions, a college textbook. You co-authored the 4 Disciplines, and then really the last book, kind of almost now your seminal book, really is With Your Dad and Others, The Leader in Me, which is today's topic. Let's talk about this education program. Great. So you've been in the firm for just shy of 25 years. You went to Harvard Business School. You came and worked here in your, I guess, late 20s, early 30s or so. Yeah. Worked your way as an author. You're now the president of the Education Division. And I don't know, about maybe 10 years ago, The Leader in Me started. In fact, Franklin Covey's had an education division for, 25 years. I started in it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we've been selling the 7 Habits to universities, school districts for almost 30 years. But about a decade ago, something interesting happened by educators for educators.
Sure.
Take a few minutes and take us on the journey of what is The Leader in Me and kind of how did it start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd call it serendipity.
Yeah.
We never would have expected this. We didn't plan for it. This started with a school in Raleigh, North Carolina called A.B. Combs Elementary. And here you have a principal. Her name is Muriel Summers, and she's sent in to turn around this failing school. Right? She arrives and tries her best, but nothing's working. And she's got what they call a magnet school, or a school with a theme, right? And a lot of schools are like that. And her job is to attract a lot of students, and she's not attracting anybody. And the school's about to be shut down because it's doing so poorly. Superintendent comes to her and says, Muriel, we're gonna change you because you're not attracting anybody. You've got low test scores. Everything's going really bad. And he said, I'll give you 1 more week to come up with a new idea.
Wow.
And she's shocked, and she goes, well, give me another year. And he goes, no, you got a week to come up with a new idea. She's desperate. And so she has a few bucks left in her professional development account. She sees Stephen Covey's in town, so she goes to hear him speak. Okay?
Your father?
My father.
And how long ago was this, Sean?
This would have been about 12 years ago.
12 years ago. Right.
Yeah. So she goes, and she said, I arrived late. I had to sit in the front row, and Stephen's speaking on the 7 Habits. And she said, I'd heard of him. I'd read a little bit about him. And she said, the habits just blew me away. He's talking about being proactive. You are the captain of your life, right? Don't let the past hold your hostage future, your future hostage. Right. He'd talk about, seek first to understand, then to be understood, these powerful principles in the 7 Habits. And she kept saying to herself, this is exactly what our school needs.
That have changed countless millions of people's lives as adults.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it hit her for the first time, right? And so during a break, she goes up Dr. Covey, she gets her courage up. Dr. Covey, Muriel Summers, I'm an elementary school principal, can these ideas be taught to young kids? And he goes, well, yeah, we do it with teenagers all the time. She goes, no, really young kids, like 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And he said, he looked at this guy and said, I don't know why not. Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? And so she went back and she thought, I'm going to build a school based on leadership. I'm going to use the 7 habits and other leadership ideas and teach my kids reading, writing, math, and how to be a leader of their own lives, right? And so she started this in her school. She started teaching the 7 habits to all the adults and the kids.
Independent of the Franklin Covey company.
Independent of the
She
Franklin
was
Covey
just
company.
germinating this on her own.
She just went out on
in
her
this
own.
weak window that she had to save herself and her school.
Exactly. Well, she went back to the superintendent and said, my new idea is leadership.
Okay.
And he said, that's compelling. Give it a go. Okay, so she got her staff involved. They went out and interviewed parents. What do you want out of your school? Everybody said, we want kids that are self-starters, they're cooperative, they get along well with other people, they're balanced. She basically said they talked about these social emotional life skills that all the parents wanted, right?
Same things leaders want in their employees and companies.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But they don't have.
Yeah, so long story, okay. So she started doing this in her school. She gave her kids leadership roles and responsibilities. Everybody started taking over the school, so to speak. She taught them how to set and achieve goals. A year later, her scores shot up, attendance boomed. 4 years later, she's named the #1 magnet school in the country. Test scores skyrocketed.
And this is
So this is how it started.
This is a movie script, is it not?
Is, it is.
This is a movie you would see.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
A true movie, yeah.
Yeah. Desperate teacher, her and her staff put together this, what she called a leadership model,
Yeah.
right?
Who will play Muriel Summers in the movie?
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah.
But somebody with a southern accent.
Okay,
that's
got
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I went to visit her school, after she became the #1 school in the country in the magnet status, I was just blown away by it. I said, Muriel, this is unbelievable what you've created this with this school. And she pointed at me, she said, it is your moral imperative to do something about this. I have so many people visiting my school all the time. I'm trying to run a school, but this should be spread, you know, throughout the state, throughout the country and the world. So that's how the whole thing began, is happenstance, encounter of Muriel Summers and Stephen Covey,
Right.
2 visionaries
Right.
that wanted to bring leadership and the power of the 7 habits and other leadership content to children.
And you and your father and others have been sort of, memorialized that process and story in the book. Now, 12 years later, I understand there's over 4,000 Leader in Me schools around the world in 55 countries. I mean, it's a remarkable pollination of the power of leadership at the youngest age possible.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
Tell us about the process. What is the Leader in Me? Kind of maybe work through the mechanics. I mean, it's sort of a whole school improvement process, but what does it mean to be a Leader in Me school?
Sure. Well, it basically means that you are a leader. The Leader in Me, in a nutshell, it's a whole school improvement model. It impacts everybody in the school, not just the kids, but it also goes to the adults, right? And I'd also call it a...
Educators, administrators, students are all enculturated, if you will, in these principles.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also kind of a global community of educators that are dedicated to unleashing human potential, right? So there's a strong cultural feel to it. So if a Leader in Me, if a school wants to do Leader in Me, basically we start with training all the teachers in the 7 habits of highly effective people. We basically say, you've got to get on the same page. It's the foundation, right? It starts with them, then it goes to the kids. It goes to the kids through lesson plans. So somebody in math, right, that's teaching a math class will learn how to, they might say in the class, you know, let's synergize. Let's get together in tables and let's use each other's talents. And so the language is being reinforced all the time. Kids are taught how to set and achieve goals, right? And the goals could be, typically they're academic and personal. They have one of each, right? And so it cascades throughout the whole school, starts with the staff, goes to the students, goes to the parents, and it's all around helping unleash the talent of the children in the school. But it starts with the adults. And
my sense is the world's not short on school improvement processes. What do you think is the secret sauce or has made the Leader in Me so indisputably replicable and adoptable for schools?
Yeah, a couple things. I think one, it starts with the paradigms of the school. So paradigm is the lens through which you see everything, right? And that's taught powerfully in the 7 habits. So the paradigms of the Leader in Me are different. right? So we have 5 paradigms, overarching paradigms. One is every child can be a leader. And so instead of these 5 kids...
That's a lens that you teach every
Exactly.
educator, administrator, that they will start seeing their children through.
Exactly, yeah. Every child can be a leader, is
Okay.
one of them. Everybody has genius, including the staff members, right? So this belief, this amazing belief in every student. Change starts with me. It's another key paradigm, right? So for the adults in the school, we say to them, the first thing we say is, it's crazy to think your school is going to change if you don't change first. And so this is going to impact you, and you're going to have to get better at getting along with your colleagues.
Could be threatening to some people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is threatening to them sometimes, and typically they love it, and they go, oh my gosh, this is the best professional development I've ever had before, right? So that's another paradigm, is change starts with me. Another one is, my job is not to control your learning. My job is to empower you to lead your own learning. Okay, so it's all about student leadership of their own learning. They have, all the students inside the school have a leadership notebook where they keep track of all their goals and exactly how they're doing. And so remember back in school when you never knew how you were doing, you have to go up to the teacher and look at your grades and...
Oh, I knew. My parents were making me give them progress reports.
Yeah.
But I see your point, yeah.
Yeah, but the point is they control their own learning and they keep track of their own grades and so
right.
forth. That's one of the unique aspects of Leader in Me. And then the last thing is it's about developing the whole child, not just the academic child. Because in today's society, academics are necessary and insufficient.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to know how to read and write and do math, but you've also got to know how to get along well with other people, how to resolve conflicts, how to wake up and get up on time, how to set and achieve goals, how to manage your time, how to stay balanced, all those things that are so important to employers, right?
Yeah.
So important to you as a husband, a mother, father, whatever, right?
Sean, with any successful initiative, there are always going to be critics. But I'm sure there's been some critics on Leader in Me. You've spent a lot of time in your team of about 200 people around the nation, at least, larger in the world, rigorously making sure that it meets standards and drives academics. What are some of the misconceptions that perhaps parents come into the Leader in Me thinking, and then as they get involved, they realized that that's not true, it's really this? Address some of those.
Yeah. Well, I think one of them would be people think it's a curriculum. Right? That the Leader in Me is just, oh, it's a math book, a textbook or something, right? And they get into it and they realize that this is culture. This is about the feeling inside the school. There's a great quote by Roland Barthes, a great educator, wrote about 30 books, and he concludes his life's work by saying, the relationships that exist among the adults in the school has more to do with the outcomes of the kids than any other factor.
Wow.
So how well the adults in the school get along has more to do with the outcomes of Scott or Sean or Susie or Cindy than any other factor. And
it's like the power of the parents in the home, right?
Exactly. And so I think when parents get into this, they start to realize, oh, this is cultural. This is about how people feel in the school. And this is about me, too, as a parent, reinforcing what my kid's learning at school. This is about our community. That's why we have so many community initiatives going on right now, right? We have entire communities that will adopt the Leader in Me to help with their workforce development. Okay, we've got this in about 20 different places throughout the United States right now. Because they realize, you know what, employers are looking around saying, I'm not getting the kind of students I need to work in my business. They lack all of these 21st century life skills.
Which is why you have so many businesses that are helping to underwrite these Leader in Me schools, because they want to develop their future workforce.
Exactly.
Locally.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, we've had hundreds of businesses step up and help support schools.
It's amazing. The mission is so exciting. Get practical. How, for a parent, for an administrator or a teacher who's desperate to help turn their school around, what's the process? You know, other than calling Franklin Covey, what is the process the school goes through to adopt the Leader in Me content?
Yeah. Well, they go through there's about 8 days of training over 3 years. There's coaching. We've got coaches that come into the school and help coach like a lighthouse team, a leadership team.
What's a lighthouse team?
It's like a champion team. So go inside the school and say, principal, you're leading this whole effort, right? But we need about 7 members that are going to be champions. They're going to be teaching everybody else how to do it, right?
I see.
And we're going to certify them and make them really good at Leader in Me.
Parents could be included in that.
They can be.
Typically educator, particularly administrators.
We typically have 3 groups. We have a group of educators.
Okay.
We have a group of kids.
All right.
That are kind of a leadership lighthouse team for kids, and we've got a parent team that do it as well, right? So that's part of it. They're in charge of the cultural change and so forth. But key things you'll see in a Leader in Me school if you walk in. What's different, right? One thing you'll notice that the halls are decked out in kid stuff, right?
Fun.
So most schools you go in and they're just sterile and dry, and there's a few things here or there, and why not let the kids take over, right? So the kids love it, they eat it up, and we say, make it look like a leadership school. So they'll come up with the third grade will own this hall, and they'll come up with all kinds of ideas and quotes and leadership themes, and you go into a school and you'll see this beautiful school decorated by the kids. That'll be one key thing. Another thing you'll see in a school, Leader Me School, it's different. This is all part of implementing, right? Is goals everywhere. You'll walk into a school, you'll see a wildly important goal, a WIG. At the very front of the school,
Give me an example of one you might see.
Okay, it'll say, our goal is to increase reading scores from 72 to 89% passing end of grade exams by May 31st.
Which exactly follows the 4 disciplines execution methodology, right?
Exactly.
From X to Y by when.
Yeah. So you'll see that, and then you'll go and there'll be a grade level goal that will take that and cascade it down. Then you'll see a classroom goal.
I see.
And then you'll get to a little kid, and you'll get to with a second grader, and you'll say, "Show me your leadership notebook." This is where they keep track of all their goals and stuff. And Johnny will flip it open and say, "Okay, my personal goal is to learn how to do a somersault. My academic goal is to increase my reading by this percentage." And then you'll say, "Johnny, what are you going to do to get that goal?" And he'll have his lead measures written down. Every night I read for 20 minutes, and I have to read 25 books. Okay, so I'm going to read 3 books a month. And then he has an accountability partner. So on Friday he'll meet with Susie, and they'll sit down and they'll say, "How'd you do on your goal?" And I did pretty good. How about you, right? So you can imagine the power of that inside of a school, right?
Right.
So this goal setting is throughout the entire school. It's academic goals, personal goals. It's another key thing. Another thing you'll see is leadership roles, responsibilities inside of a school. So you'll go there and you'll go there for a tour, Scott, and they'll say,
which I've done, yeah.
The adults will do the tour. You'll have 5 kids that will say, "Hey, we'll take you around. We're in charge." That's our leadership role and responsibility, is to do tours, right? They've got hundreds of leadership roles. So like AB Combs, I went there first time. Every kid had a job. I greet people. I'm in charge of audiovisual. I'm the playground leader. I'm the trash leader. And they apply for these jobs and roles, but the whole idea is you turn the school over to the kids. So I was at a conference once, and I had 5 kids up on stage with me, 1,000 people.
Which could be risky. Right?
Always risky. You never know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Guy raised his hand and he said, "What's the difference between your school now that you're a Leader Me School and what it was like before?" And he thought for a second. He was probably a 10-year-old kid, and he said, "It used to be that the teachers used to run the school. Now we do all the work." So those are kind of some of the differences you'll see. You'll see leadership roles and responsibilities. You'll see goals everywhere. You'll see decorated halls. You'll see you'll hear a common language.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
I mean,
did
in
you put
many
first
ways,
things first?
In many ways, very similar to how organizations adopt the 7 Habits content. You'll go into a organization that has a strong 7 Habits culture and language, and you'll see many of the same goals and reinforcements to make sure it's enculturated in our behaviors.
Yeah.
It's not free. So what are some of the innovative ways that schools and districts are launching these initiatives around the world?
Yeah, sure. Well, like you said before, we have about 4,500 schools now in 55 countries.
Congratulations,
so,
man. Talking about taking a
Yeah.
vision started by
one
not even a
teacher.
client, right?
Yeah.
By one principal, and now you're at 4,500 schools worldwide.
Yeah. So, and it's being used, it's universal because it's based on these universal principles, right? And so they said Europe won't like it. Europe loves it, right? They said Latin America, it won't go over. In Brazil, because their curriculums are too strict.
Like your biggest country, right?
We've got 400 schools in Brazil, and so it's very universal. But people, the way they adopt it is we try to make it as inexpensive as possible. So we discount it immensely off of our corporate rates, right? Because we want to get this to every child.
Which was part of your dad's original mission. Even when your dad was the co-founder and the owner of the Covey Leadership Center, he always had a robust education division. And he felt like that was sort of the philanthropy of the company, right? He had discounts and he spoke disproportionately even to education because he had such a passion. As an educator, your dad was, he had a passion about it back then.
He did.
You're carrying forward that legacy almost 40 years later.
Yeah, we want to make it as affordable as possible. We find about a third of the schools across the world have been funded by an organization, like Panda, fast food, Chinese fast food.
Yeah, my kids love it.
Hundreds.
My kids would go twice a week if we'd let them.
Yeah, those little boxes where you put your change in at the end, or you round up your cell. Right. That goes to Leader Me schools. So they've funded hundreds of schools throughout the world. Dozens of other corporations.
Isn't that great though to hear a brand that you love because you love their product, but you also hear that Panda Express has made such an intentional investment in leadership in schools where their kids may or may not become their future employee base.
Right.
It's very inspiring to see.
It's totally inspiring.
Businesses like that step up.
Yeah, and they began because Andrew and Peggy Chern, right? Chinese
founders,
founders. They come in. And they loved the 7 Habits. They said, I want to build a culture in our stores like the 7 Habits. So every employee has to have read the 7 Habits to be interviewed, right? Wow. And so when they saw the impact on their own culture, they thought, you're doing this with kids? Yeah. And we've got 5 schools in our backyard we'd love to sponsor.
That's how it started.
That's how it started, and then it just kind of spread.
And you have a process for other local businesses or large businesses that are, corporate citizens in their communities to be involved and to maybe co-fund or co-sponsor.
Yes.
There's a model for that.
Yeah, there's a great model for it, and businesses love it, right? Because they want to. Every business wants to give back to the community. Yeah, Education is a great place to do it.
Right. Their kids are in the schools.
Kids are in the schools. They can do it in their backyard. So we have, all kinds of corporations that will fund dozens of schools.
Talk about the role that I've heard that emerging role that chambers of commerce are also having in Leader in Me schools.
Sure. Well, let me give you an example. So. This is in Bowling Green, Kentucky, right? They're struggling with workforce development. They're thinking, we got to attract more businesses here. Okay. And we need, and our employers are saying, we are lacking something with the graduates we're getting. And so they said, we're going to do a big workforce development initiative. We want to attract better companies. We want to get better workers, right? So they partnered with us. They said, Leader in Me is perfect for this. We want to do it across these 2 districts. They went to the school districts, Chamber of Commerce led, right? And got the 2 districts to buy in and said, we're going to do this across the board. They've got, like 50 schools now doing Leader in Me, and they are attracting people like hotcakes, right? It's working really well.
I can see why.
Because they come in and they say, your kids are developing these leadership skills. The employers are loving it because they're getting kids that got, they know how to collaborate, get along, solve problems, wake up on time, show up on time, you know what I mean? These types of things. So that's how chambers are leading the Leader in Me initiatives all over the country. It's probably the #1 source of funding is through chambers.
A first step is probably for a parent or an educator, pick up the book, read the book, get a good sense for what the initiative is about and why schools are adopting it. Yeah. The next might even be to visit the website, right? Leader in Me to understand. I'm guessing you have case studies on there and tutorials of how someone can get involved. Yeah. And then you've got a large group of coaches and advisors that can actually meet with prospective schools, principals, parents. Yeah. Does it usually start at the parent level? Does it start at the superintendent level? Is it the principal level? Is there like a typical path something catches fire?
Yeah, there is. Typically what happens is you have a principal read this book.
Okay. So a parent could buy it, 2 copies, one for them and give one to their principal.
Yeah, it's typically the starting point is a principal reads it or a parent reads it and they go and talk with the principal. Okay. Or they go and talk with the chamber or somebody like that, right? It's always one catalyst. Yeah. You go to any place where we have a lot of Leader in Me schools.
You can point it back to the person that started it.
This person is usually a parent or a principal. Yeah.
And how often is that catalyst someone who already has an affinity for the 7 Habits? They went through the work session in their company, read the book. Is there often a correlation from a professional who found the meaning in their own life and wanted to bring it into the school?
Yes, there is.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. I'd say more than not, it's somebody that had an experience with the 7 Habits when they were at a corporation. Yeah.
Well, the 7 Habits, I think, is continues to be one of the best-selling books of all time. Yes. Your dad's legacy is huge. Talk a bit about the 7 Habits for a minute and the Covey power behind that. You're one of 7 children?
One of 9.
One of 9 children. Yeah. Sorry, I excommunicated you there. 9 children. 4 boys?
There's 4 boys, 5 girls.
4 boys, 5. Are you 4th or 3rd?
Number 4th.
You're 4th from the top.
So I was neglected.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I didn't turn out too shabby for you. Your father was the co-founder of this company, many years ago.
Yeah.
For people that know, Stephen Covey to this day, his although he's passed about, 5 years ago?
6 years ago.
6 years ago. I should get my numbers right. His legacy's never been bigger. In many ways, you and your older brother Stephen and your brother Josh all work in the firm in some capacity. Your brother, of course, Sean Covey, or Stephen Covey, wrote the Speed of Trust book, which has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Tell us about your dad. For those people who hadn't had a chance to meet him,
Sure.
what are some of the lessons that you learned, inspired from your dad?
Yeah. Well, I think I was lucky to have a good dad. It's like I think many people are. He was very humble. He was visionary. He believed in people. He embodied the leader in me. This idea of everyone has genius and everybody can be a leader, right? He was affirming, and he was known for his affirmations, and he believed them. He wouldn't just say them, right? He'd go up to people, and like he'd come up to you right now, and he'd say something like, "Scott, I see this in you."
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, many times.
And at his funeral, we got hundreds. I started a huge book. It's about this thick of letters from people around the world that told their own experience.
Wow.
I was at this conference back in 1978.
We should publish that. That would be interesting.
We should.
Yeah.
And your dad came up to me after I spoke, and he said this to me, and it's impacted my whole life. I changed my career because of this one statement he said to me. And so he was a good person. And he got his strength came from his private victories. Right? So he was really good in the mornings. At night, everybody would stay up late. My mom would stay up late till 2 a.m. and he'd always sneak out and go to bed because he'd get up really early.
Yeah.
And he would get up and he would study and he would read and he would exercise. And then he'd come back and he'd show up for breakfast and he'd be like on fire. Oh, kids, I got this great idea. I was reading this morning. And so there's so much positive energy from him all the time, right? And I remember one time, I was at a conference with him, and he gave a speech, and we were meeting afterwards, and I was asking him some questions about, Dad, this is right after I'd graduated from college, what should I do with my career? And he so affirmed me. And I remember thinking, I'm not as good as you think I am, Dad. And then I said, well, what do you think leadership is? We were talking about leadership, and he paused, and he said, I think leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly that they can see it in themselves. And that's a famous quote.
Very
he's known
famous
for
quote,
now.
yeah.
And that was before it was ever printed. I heard the original.
Wow.
And when he said it, it was up at Sundance at a resort where he was doing a conference. And when he said it, leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they can see it in themselves. When he said that, I teared up, because it was so genuine, and I thought, that is leadership, and that's how you make me feel, Dad. Is you make me feel like I can accomplish anything. You know.
What a great dad.
Yeah. So
we think of him as a leadership guru and a Time magazine famous person, and he wrote this book, The Eighth Habit, based on that principle. But what a affirming story to hear him affirm you.
Yeah, as good as he was in public, and he was a great author and speaker and person, he was better as a dad. Because he cared about individuals. He was such a good listener.
You've inspired me to go back to my boys tonight and really intentionally affirm them. It's a great parenting insight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was all about affirmation, and it was genuine, right?
Yeah.
It was a good balance with my mom, because my dad was always loyal to principles.
Yes.
Mom was always loyal to you. And so it was a good balance, right? You'd come home from school, and I'd say something like, Dad, my algebra teacher sucks, and I'm going to flunk, and it's his fault. And he'd take me aside and say, Sean, if you flunk algebra, it's your fault. And if you have a problem with your teacher, don't talk about him. Go talk with him.
Of course he would say that.
And I'd say, Dad, you're so weird. Where's Mom? And I talk with Mom, and she goes, yeah, your teacher is terrible. I'm going to call him.
You need a parent like that, right?
No.
Yeah.
So it was a good balance, right?
Your mom's doing well. Yeah.
Mom's doing well.
Yes.
Yeah, she's 82.
Wow.
She's still plugging away and does everything, goes to games, and she's in a wheelchair and has been for a while, and it's been hard for her.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's hard to watch your parents age.
Right, yeah. Mine are approaching the same age.
Speaking about my dad and this work, he, I remember hearing him about 6 months before he passed away, and he was at a big conference and speaking, and he did Q&A at the end. And I thought to myself, I don't know how much longer he's going to be around. I just had this strange feeling maybe this be one of the last times I heard him, right? And somebody raised their hand and said, what are you most proud of, Stephen? And he said, I'd say two things. My family, number one. Number two would be the work we're doing with kids, and the leader in me. And then he expounded and he just said, I just think it's, these children are pure, they're innocent, they're good, they don't have to unlearn anything, and teaching them these powerful principles at a young age is going to change their lives forever. And the work we do with adults is really important too, and this is more important. So he really, he loved this work, he endorsed it. He originally visited A.B. Combs before I did and said, you got to go see this place, right? And so I think he'd be very proud to see this work spreading across the earth. And our vision is, and I think we've got a real pure intent, our vision is to take this to as many kids as we can. Chinese, Japanese, German, French, Brazilian, American, we don't care. Public, private, charter, religious schools, we don't care. We're going everywhere with this. And we hope in time to become the most influential school system ever, right, by teaching these ideas and principles to kids everywhere.
Well, I think you're well on your way, and I can't think of a better operating system from a behavioral point of view than the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because it's changed my life. It's why I'm still in the firm 22 years later, and it's been a phenomenal ride, and you're just starting, it sounds like, huh?
I think we're just starting.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I mean, I don't know how you can write any more books or that you need to, but I think you've got a few in you. What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, you're
speaking a lot.
I'm speaking a lot, yeah. I feel like I feel a great stewardship towards this, you know. So it changed my life. When I visited Muriel Summers that first time, I didn't know my career would go like this, right? So I feel like I want to help this get to the whole earth, right? As many kids as we can. I'm always writing something. So I'm continuing to write the Happy Kids books. Those have done really well.
They're so great. Yeah. You update every book every couple of years or so, the teens book and 6 Most Important Decisions and such. And there's perhaps maybe an execution book in the works as well for educators, right? Yeah,
so the Leader in Me has lots of leadership in it. 7 Habits is foundational, so is the 4 Disciplines of Execution.
That's right.
These principles work for kids, right? Everybody has a wildly important goal. Your key actions to get there, a scoreboard, and accountability, right? It's that simple. It works really well. It's profound. I've always felt like the 4 disciplines are as profound as the 7 habits. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So we think that these wildly important goals and the scoreboards work so well in schools, we think we should write a book towards this end that basically talks about, 4 disciplines for educators, their examples, their pictures, their scoreboards. And so we're
You're kind of a celebrity. I mean, as I think about you recapping some of your books, I think that 10 million people have purchased your books, and who knows how many more have read them that have been passed on. I'm kind of in the presence of greatness here. I never knew
I don't know about that. Anytime if I ever got a big head, I just go home, my teenagers tell me I'm an idiot. I start eating something, they'll say, oh, stop making that noise, Dad, right? Or they make fun of how I dress.
Is to humble you.
And then so I go out on the road and I give a big speech, and then I come home, I get humbled. Really quickly.
Yeah. Sean, great.
You've got
things
little
ahead.
kids, right?
I do.
They humble you.
4, 6, and 8. They would I be Stephen or would I be your mom? I'm not sure. I probably would be like the Stephen, it's your fault, and my wife might be Sandra, your mom.
Okay, really?
Right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm going to go home and affirm my kids. Sean,
okay,
thank you.
Scott,
Great conversation. We'll have you back again on the set, and we appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you so
much. Great luck in the year ahead.
Great being
and
on
thank
the
you,
show.
everybody, for our time today with Sean Covey. Pick up The Leader in Me or any of the other books that he's written or is going to keep writing, and we'll see you here next week with a new guest for On Leadership. Thanks for your time.